This is the part of the show that I have the most fun with. This is the random data, RJ's random data, where I go through the crazy news items I've seen this week in science and elsewhere, politics, technology, and just tell you about them because there's nutty stuff. That one of the things about living in the 0 hour, living in a society, in a culture, in a humanity that's approaching a 0 hour, is that crazy stuff is happening all the time. We don't even have the time to track it all. For example, science story from inside.com. The universe shouldn't actually exist according to a new theory. Physicists modeled the circumstances immediately after the Big Bang and realized that the universe should have collapsed in microseconds. The story goes on to say, and I quote, "They expect that something is missing from their calculations." Gee, you think? Now, we're always talking about drones here on the 0 hour and the threat from drones. Here's a new one. Increase in drones in the sky, again from inside.com, has resulted in some close encounters. Aircrafts in New York and Los Angeles have reported scares as they descend into their respective airports, nearly crashing. Illegal drones are being flown in commercial U.S. airspace more and more. But there's good news, folks. There's good news. I think this is good. A Los Angeles man flies a drone to monitor the police. Torrance resident Daniel Solomon has been flying his drone around the Southway for about a month. He created a website on which he regularly posts videos shot at police, DUIs, and traffic stops. So sometimes people are watching the watcher. And along those lines, there was also a story in New Scientist that said that based on the Edward Snowden revelations about how certain simple bugging devices are being placed inside computer technologies, hackers have been able to replicate those devices so that they can learn how to defend against them. That is also a good sign. Now, speaking of surveillance, workplace surveillance. There's new technology being used to surveil people on the job, whether it's using their phones to track them, using their own personal cell phones, their computers, and so on. So one of the studies showed that workers are more productive if they have more social interaction. So a bank's call center actually spying wound up oddly doing a good thing. A bank's call center wound up introducing a 15-minute shared coffee break because it showed it improved productivity. Does that mean that our bosses should be spying on us all the time? No. According to the New York Times, there was another workplace project studied in one of the largest factories in the world, which is in China, a mobile phone factory, employing 14,000 workers. In the experiment, 4 of its 32 assembly lines were bordered by curtains like the kind they have around hospitals so that nobody could see the workers. The result, the workers behind the curtains, hidden from their employers, were 10 to 15% more productive than others in the factory. So if you really want to make your workers productive, don't spy on them and then give coffee breaks. Just don't spy on them. Now, on a very different story, a Wall Street guy sued Goldman Sachs because his $8 million bonus was too small. This is from Juan Ket. Here's a story in which everybody is terrible, says Juan Ket. He's suing them because his $8.25 million bonus wasn't big enough. He's awful. Goldman Sachs is Goldman Sachs, so of course they're awful. And going back to the conversation with Digby, they say how Occupy didn't end up with heads piked in front of their barricades, ... Okay, now here's a really weird story. Right of the Sitting Dead from the New York Times. Down in New Orleans, there is a guy who is a funeral director, an undertaker, who is posing dead bodies in the positions that they like best. So Miriam Burbank, who died at 53, spent her funeral service sitting at a table amid miniature New Orleans Saints helmets with a can of Busch beer in one hand and a menthol cigarette between her fingers, because she died like she wanted to live. Another murder victim on a motorcycle was dressed up like Che Guevara. A boxer's body was arranged standing in a ring. An elderly woman was propped up in a rocking chair. They say that a law passed in 2012 says that wakes with posed cadavers are illegal as long as the position they're in is not considered immoral, to which many people would say, so much for being remembered doing the things we love the most. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The 0 Hour.